Hey you peeps! This is Paya, and welcome to Paya Prism's Variety Show. Honestly, I'm just gonna preface this whole thing by saying thanks for stopping by for this first episode of, well, the hopefully useful mess that I'm going to be putting onto YouTube. I really appreciate it. Also, please bear with me while I get everything set up. My talk sprites are taking a little while, so for the time being at least, I'll be using video game footage in the background. Yeah, I know, old school YouTube, am I right? But being serious for a bit, I hope that you're all staying as safe as you possibly can during this pandemic situation that the world's in at the moment. Now then, with that somber tangent covered, and before I get all emotional, on to the actual meat of today's video! Character creation, specifically in this case, in the context of making one for a world with superheroes, superpowers, supervillains, all that awesome stuff. Now, I've made a lot of characters over the years, and the genre of superheroes has always been one of my favourites. The cool thing is, with only a teensy bit of tweaking, these tips can work for almost any world or universe that has powers of any sort. But you no doubt want me to stop beating around the bush and get to the juicy stuff, huh? Normally, when I make a character, as an arty person, I tend to draw them first and then try to figure out who this random person on the paper in front of me is, but I know that a lot of other people have difficulty doing it that way around, so I'm going to tell you a secret. The trick to having a superhero, or a supervillain, because let's be real here, this channel is equal opportunity, that feels coherent with themselves and the world around them is to decide first up what they have as a power. Do they hero or villain by the use of technology, or do they have some sort of ability that those around them don't? And if so, does it affect their appearance in any way? Yes, doing this before you decide what a character looks like can help you in putting functionality and meaning into any visual oddities they may possess. That being said, doing it afterwards can help put that meaning to what was previously just something cool you wanted to add. Some universes, like the comics giants of DC and Marvel, have all sorts, including aliens and part aliens, and even demons or demon-like things, but that's a story for another day. Maybe. Anywho, back on topic. Once you've got an ability in mind, like say, manipulating water, you can then decide if there's anything that makes the character look different because of the ability. Do they have naturally blue hair in a world that doesn't happen normally? What about eyes that are the colour of shallow waters around a tropical island? Or do they look completely normal, like the person next door, the person next to you on the train, that sort of thing? While we're on that topic, around about here is where I can confidently suggest that you put together a basic idea as to what they look like overall. Like, what sort of age are they? What's their racial background, and do they have skin colour that reflects that, or is it influenced in some way by their ability? What's their physical sex, and alongside that, is it the same as their gender identity? What sort of build do they have, and so long as you don't do something fucking ridiculous, like a 13-year-old girl with curves straight out of a porno, or a guy, also 13, with muscles that The Rock would be jealous of, you should be fine. That little tangent aside, what colour hair do they have, and how do they style it? And finally, what do their eyes look like? Now that we've ticked off the basics of what they can do and what they look like, we can start to focus on the other equally, if not more important parts. The nitty-gritty, where you can really stretch those creative wings. With the idea of what a character can do with their power, you also, and this is very, 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 very important, and I can't stress just how important this shit is, you need to figure out what they can't do. What their shortcomings are, specifically related to that power. Even Superman has weaknesses that directly interact with his powers, so your character should too. Of course, there's also these other questions to bear in mind. How did they get it? How long have they had it, or even known about it? And how good are they at using it? And, well, be reasonable with that last one. No one's going to be perfect at using their superpowers the moment they find out about them, even if they have a knack for it. Back to the water manipulation idea, though. How much volume can they influence at once? Or, without getting really, really tired? Is there a difference between fresh or salt water, or whether there's a lot of extra material, solid or not, in the water that they're using? Does being wet make them stronger, or dry make them weaker? Can they breathe underwater? What about water drag and resistance? Do they have any steam, fog, snow, or ice manipulation abilities as well? Or is it strictly the liquid form of water that they can use? What about things like blood? Can they also manipulate that? And high pressure water, can they use that for concussive or cutting purposes? As for the possible weaknesses of an ability like this, well, fire or extreme heat, especially if there's no steam manipulation involved, and inversely, extreme low temperatures may also impact how well things go for them if ice or snow isn't in their repertoire. Electricity is generally one of the best things to have as a weakness for a water user, due to how those two things interact. You could feasibly have plant life as a problem for your hydrokinetic hero too. Well, hero, villain, yada. But there's not just strictly power-related weaknesses that heroes and the like have to contend with. There's also the much more personal ones, and that, dear viewer, is where this set of tips is going next. A character's personality is the backbone of who they are. It is irreversibly tied to their personal history, but it isn't a one-for-one type of deal. You can have two characters who have the worst life imaginable, go through the exact same things, but they come out of it with entirely different outlooks on life, due to having entirely different personalities. For a rich and well-developed personality, you're going to need more than just a few keywords. Those are great as a starting point, but you'll always need to go back and flesh it out some more. What does the character like? What do they dislike? What's their passion in life, and what's their nope button? There aren't many ways I can tell you how to do this part, as it's really a case-by-case sort of thing, but you want to be able to look at your character's personality and feel like they could be alive and in the room next to you. A friend, a family member, a co-worker. It doesn't end there, however. You see, before we move on to the next overarching topic, there's one more trick I want to impart to you. Many worlds that have characters with powers, which aren't some kind of racial ability, also play with the idea that a power can have certain personality traits associated with it. With water, you can make the character quiet but powerful like waves and currents, or joyful like a bubbling fountain, or easygoing like a day at the beach, or somber and introspective like the rain. The list goes on. Warmer temperatures for watery powers can lend themselves to characters with feisty natures, hotheads with steam coming out of their ears, perhaps even literally. Colder temperatures, on the other hand, lend themselves to cooler and more calculating natures, perhaps standoffish but also playful with the right approach. See what I mean? However, now we move on to more ability stuff, actually, only this time I'm talking about things that can be learned, like sewing or cooking or driving or doing work on a machine, and things that you may have a knack for that aren't related to the actual power the character has. Now, it's really important you don't overload your character with these, especially for no reason. Bear in mind how old they are, how good you want them to be at the skill in question, and whether they could have learned it or indeed worked on perfecting it to the level you're after. Next comes the big one. The society they belong to, the history of the character, and to some degree the history of their immediate family as well. Where do they live? Where were they born? Where did they grow up? What sort of society did their parents live in before they were born? What kind of life have they led so far? Is there some sort of divide between those with powers and those without? I mean, in Marvel, mutants like the X-Men are persecuted by ordinary people out of fear and mistrust. In DC, most metahumans are treated in similar ways because so many of them take to criminal lifestyles. in an anime like My Hero Academia, though I don't know it that well just yet. Yet, I say, I do know this much. Not having powers is the oddity, thereby making the dynamic between people something else entirely. Another thing to consider, especially with how big the topic has gotten in people's minds recently, is whether or not their identity is a potential cause for contention in the society that they live in. Whether it be for racial reasons, for religious reasons, or gender-related reasons, including who they want to be in a relationship with. These will influence not only how the character sees themselves, but also how others see them, which in turn will affect how they're treated by others and the sort of life they can lead. Above all, though, the two most important things to remember are: make sure that your character feels like it fits into the world you want them to, and have fun. If you're not sure whether your character suits the world you want to put them in, you can always ask someone for help, to check it over and give you honest feedback. Hell, I'd even be happy to. My inbox is always open, especially if you include the word purple in the title. However, I think that about covers everything I have to say on this at the moment. I'd love to hear any thoughts you may have, so feel free to duck down into the comments section. Comics section? Sheesh. And tell me all about them. If you liked this, then by all means, tap that like button and consider subscribing for more content from yours truly. There will be more videos like this one, alongside so many other kinds of things that my brain is fit to burst from it all. Anyway, this is Paya, signing off and bidding you a fantastic day.